So I'm Stuhldreher. I'm the market leader here at Cohatch. Work alongside Courtney and Ashley, where's Ashley, to help put this together. So Courtney can tell a little bit about that, but I think I recognize everybody in the room. But very excited about these two. They are both part of our impact program and on our scholarship program. So one of the big things we do at Cohatch is around impact, and we want to make sure we have access for everyone. So we have we have 3 scholarship programs, and the 2 that they're part of is the Boost Scholarship. So it's intended for startups and women and minority-owned businesses. So very proud to have some representation of them up here, and looking forward to hearing more. So Courtney, take it away.
Courtney, I'm with Rebel IT, but I also am the lead organizer and editor-in-chief of the Tech Life newsletter. So if you've received the Tech Life newsletter, you've seen my handiwork. So want to say thank you to these women for joining us this morning. If you're interested in joining the newsletter, if you're not on the list, feel free to reach out to me or touch base with me after. But I'm going to let Sheri and Emily introduce themselves. And if you have any questions throughout, I'm sure we'll sort of lead that. But after we hear from each of you, we'll sort of break into conversation.
Great. Awesome. All right. I guess I'll go first. Yeah. Good morning, everyone. I'm Sheri Chaney Jones. I'm the founder and CEO of SureImpact. SureImpact is a B2B SaaS platform that we work primarily with government, nonprofit, social enterprises, any mission-driven organizations, and help them track, measure, and communicate their unique social impact. We also have a very innovative data sharing platform. So if a funder has a license and all of their grantees are using it, there's no more need for, I don't know if any of you are involved with nonprofits, but there's a lot of tracking and spreadsheets. That's the old way. But SureImpact now allows for seamless data share. So funders have insights into their collective impact across their whole entire portfolio of grants. So that's SureImpact in a nutshell. I founded the company in 2018, but it's my second venture. So I started my first company, Measurement Resources Company, in 2008. It is a consulting firm working with that same market, government, nonprofit, social enterprises. And our whole mission, surprise, surprise, is to help these sectors use data to solve complex social problems. And so I was doing that same thing, but manually. In a consulting way, we were collecting all the data, analyzing the data, giving the feedback back to these organizations and helping them use that data. And our customers came to us and said, Sheri, we love the insights your firm is providing. What technology should we be using so we have this at our fingertips, so we don't have to rely on essentially consultants to do it for us? And at the time, I thought, well, I'll find the right solution. I'll go find the partner, and I'll just refer their platform. It's funny, thinking back in 2015, I was extremely resistant to even the idea of being a software company or running a software company. I'd even interview vendors and say, we're not a software company. But the resistance in me was so strong. Actually, looking back on it, I realized that was really the sign that I was supposed to do this. I was meant to do this, but back then I didn't really understand what that tension I was feeling was. But anyway, I didn't find the product that I thought should exist in the market, which is what led us to engage with Rev1. I went to a customer learning lab with them, and my whole goal of that, my co-founder and I went, and our whole goal was to convince us not to do it. We wanted to go through that process and basically walk away and go, okay, well, we tested the waters. We decided we're not going to be a software company. There's no market there. But fortunately for us, unfortunately for us then, we learned that 55% of our ideal customer base said that if we built it, they would buy it. And because I'm so data-driven, I couldn't walk away from those numbers, so that's really what tipped us over into making this happen. So that was in 2018. We did something I realize now is not a common path, but I didn't know any better. I went to my measurement resources customer base and I said, hey, we're thinking about building this software tool. Is anyone interested? They gave us each $15,000 on a PowerPoint deck alone. Like, I had no product. I just said, I have this idea. I would like to build this. Will you build it? Pay for your first license up front. Then you can, once it's built, you can use it for a year. And so we got about 10 people who said yes. So that was how we basically raised the money, although it wasn't like equity, it was just license fees. We raised the money to get started, to get building the product. Then I realized that's really expensive. I need more than $75,000 to do this, or 120 when it was all said and done. So that's what led us to go out to raise our first round. We raised a pre-seed round. That allowed us to get to about $500,000 in annual recurring revenue. Again, still expenses exceeded the amount we were bringing in through fees. So we did go out for a seed round, which we just recently closed, which was $2 million to help us scale and grow. Thank you. So that is a very, very high-level overview of my journey to date.
Cool.
Yeah, I'll let you go.
Awesome. Thanks. Hi, friends. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Emily Stuhldreher. Super excited to meet all of you and to be here today. I'm the program director here at GiveBackHack. At GiveBackHack, we consider ourselves a launch pad for social innovation. That looks like a lot of things in a lot of different places, from the literally kindergarten Shark Tank pitches I'm going to after this, all the way to the social entrepreneurs that we support in the community here in Columbus. I want to talk a little bit about my story, but also about how GiveBackHack came to be, because next year is our 10-year anniversary here in Columbus, which is really exciting for a lot of reasons. But GiveBackHack was born, out of a lot of ambition and a dream back in 2014 from a handful of folks that were really involved in the startup ecosystem here in Columbus, going to events like these and Startup Weekend and others, and seeing a lot of talented and smart people working really hard on important problems, and thinking, what if we took folks, and in addition to all these great things happening, we give them an outlet for their energy, their mind, their problem solving that actually makes the community a better place, that works on social issues in the community. And so literally just with that idea, our founder, Susie Bureau, stood on tables in rooms like this and told people, hey, I'm doing something that I think matters, come check it out. And that grassroots approach is what got 125 people to the first ever GiveBackHack, and we've been growing since then. I tell that story because from there, things looked really similar in our early years. From 2015, our first official GiveBackHack event, through 2019. But we've grown a lot in different ways since then. So they're kind of chapters to the GiveBackHack story. But this first chapter was really centered around what our weekend events look like. If you've been to a weekend hackathon or ideathon, something like that, the format might look familiar. We gather folks from all different areas of the community, from the tech community, the startup community, what we call the impact community, students, people who just like volunteering, people who care about problems they see around them, into one space to pitch ideas, form teams around them, and then we pull them through a process, give them all the things that they need in the early stages, a process first and foremost, mentorship, funding, to help them figure out if their idea is one that's worth pursuing. For us, the strategy has always been to intervene at the earliest point possible, to catch folks when they're passionate and fresh on an idea and not in too deep, so that they're more open to iterating and doing the user research and exploration that we hope for them to do in those early stages. So we had our first GiveBackHack event in 2015. One of the teams that launched there was called Billion. Billion was around for about 3 years. They were a crowdfunding platform for social issues, and they took a $5,000 seed grant from GiveBackHack and turned it into about $20,000 in funds raised within their first year. These were strangers that did not know each other at the beginning of the weekend, and grew into exploding across the Columbus scene overnight. And early indicators like that of what magic, and I say magic on purpose, I think it's truly magic and you have to see it to believe it, the magic that happens when you get people that are aligned around a common vision but might come from different perspectives, skill sets, areas in the community together, it's incredible. It's truly magic. So we continued on doing that event and that event only from 2015 through 2019. We expanded to Columbus, Cleveland, Baltimore, Philadelphia. I think that's all of my checklists. I go like this so I remember them all. And really a grassroots expansion. People would travel to Columbus to come to our events and say, I moved to Baltimore, can we do it there? I'd say, yeah, sure, let's do it. And there's a magic to that in what true grassroots looks like in this interesting entrepreneurship space. But there's also a scale problem there. So my job when I came in 2020 as our first ever full-time employee was to take this magic, this grassroots movement of really talented folks that care a lot about the community and care a lot about iterating and doing things right and being innovative, but have never tried to make money before as an organization and figure out what the future looks like for us. So that was something I was really excited about. So my background is entirely in social enterprise. I don't think you hear that story a lot where folks say like, I'm exactly where I expected to be or where I wanted to end up. But for me, I've always been passionate about where market data and impact data can intersect, where we can leverage and pull systems levers to make the progress that we want to make. And so ending up here made a lot of sense for me. But ending up in the position that I came in on, I don't know if it was something I expected, but it was a challenge I was ready for. And it's been an interesting ride. So coming on in 2020, part of my job, of course, was make all of these things that have been run smooth and systematize them, whatever. That's great. It's a challenge on its own, but also like figure out what this future looks like. Take the things that are great, the processes we've been refining over the past 7 years, the impact, the hundreds of teams that we launched, find those things and see what sparks an interest in folks, where those methodologies can help people in different ways, and who will pay us to do that, right? Like really starting from scratch in some ways. But I like to say I walk on the shoulders, or I stand on the shoulders of giants, I think is the saying, because folks had been building this organization long before I came in. So yeah, I kind of hit the ground running in conversations with as many people as I could possibly talk to over the course of that first year, and we landed in a few places. So one of the things that we do is we run week-long design sprints for idea stage entrepreneurs in Columbus, but also in other communities, universities, et cetera. So people will bring us in to run those Kickstarter events for whatever ecosystem they're trying to develop, whether that's our partners at the University of Louisville that are focusing on health equity innovation, or maybe even communities like Cleveland or Austin that we're considering coming back to in a way that looks a lot like our GiveBackHack Columbus community. One of the things we do is GiveBackHack events. One of the things we do is K through 12 education, which if you would have asked me in 2020, Emily, will you be running a K through 5 program? I would have said, hell no. What? Hold on a second. Because I've always felt that our mission as GiveBackHack is to create sustainable social enterprises. And when I look at K through 12, like our high schoolers sometimes do register businesses, but most often our 7-year-olds are not about to kick off their first startup. And so I really had to dig deep in myself as, again, you're scrappy, it's early stages. I was taking the work that felt impact-oriented enough, but I had to dig deep and figure out, does this make sense? And I think the thing that I learned and what's most important to me now about our work is that what GiveBackHack is most passionate about is that anyone, you all, our little ones, people across the world, can feel empowered to do something about the problems that matter most to them. Our preference is for-profit entrepreneurship as a method for that, but more importantly, that even the youngest in our community, our K through 5 program, can identify problems like our second graders, who on the first day, when we asked like, what problems matter to you, they said, there's a housing shortage. And we said, okay, yeah, let's talk about that. And let's talk about ways we can think about that and approach that in different ways. Because what we care about is motivated, empowered people tackling the biggest problems. And so whether that's through sustainable entrepreneurship or just these folks turning into young activists, anything in between, we don't necessarily care. That's the thing that matters most. So we've got this entrepreneurship work, our education work, and then we do a little bit of work in the middle still. So we do some kind of kickstart programs for nonprofits as well, where we kind of pull them through a design sprint with the goal of educating them on design thinking and hopefully moving just a little bit more towards a more iterative model. So being able to move into short 1 week, 2 week, 6 week sprints instead of 6-year strategic plans. I think we've all felt that. I hear those chuckles. So if that's something you're interested in, I have lots of space for clients this winter, so we can chat. But that's, I think, the speed run of kind of GiveBackHack's story and where I've come in and where we are at today. I think the other important thing to note is that I came in just as a student who didn't know anyone to a GiveBackHack event in probably 2017. I just showed up. And so a lot of folks are curious, like, I wasn't the founder necessarily. I ended up here. How did we find me? And I think for me, the community has been so strong. Every GiveBackHack event we run, at least 5 people say it changed their life, like the course of their life fundamentally forever. And that was definitely true for me. So I feel lucky to be here to facilitate and to support our entrepreneurs in the community also. Thanks for having me.
Can you both kind of, from your own perspective, share a little bit about like what impact means, either for you individually and for your organization?
I'll go first because that's, I think, what I do every day, all day, is help people measure impact. So when I think of impact, there's 3 questions that I ask people to think of first, and that is, why do you do what you do? And so that, in our context, is typically the organization. So why does the organization exist? Why do they do what they do? The next question is, especially for our customer base, typically they're receiving money from government funders, foundations, individual givers, but why do the people give money to you? And then the third is, why do your participants or beneficiaries participate in your programs? Because again, if you're thinking of a social enterprise or social impact organization, people are coming to you for something more than just, on the human level, maybe there's a problem they're looking to solve. But asking yourself those 3 questions is kind of the key to what is impact, because those whys, whatever those whys are, that is really what we believe you should be measuring in terms of telling your impact story. Is, are you delivering on those whys? Are you solving the problems that your funders want you to solve for, you've created this organization to solve for, and people are coming to you for help to solve for? So that's how I loosely think of impact, is thinking about those whys and we translate those whys into measurable ways to track and measure it. And then in terms of for us personally, what is SureImpact's impact? It's that we are now giving these organizations, I believe this, deep in my soul, I believe this, that what was impossible is now possible for a sector who used to think there's, I do good work, but there's no way for me to measure it, or in order to measure it, it's too time consuming and it requires too many resources that I don't have access to. Well, now we've leveraged technology so that it is possible for now this sector to be data driven, and not data driven like their fundraising dollars or counts of people served, but actually can start managing to their mission, which, our theory of change, what we believe at SureImpact is that when we start using data to drive our decisions in the social sector, we actually will continue to make programs that work, which we will then start to see some of the affordable housing or housing stability or income stability or whatever challenge we're trying to solve improve instead of get worse, because we are driving innovations that actually work.
Yeah. I'm glad you asked this, because it reminded me of a conversation I had a few months ago with someone in our network that has known our founders since the very beginning. She's a brilliant UX designer, who's run the circuit of startups, and gosh, I love her. And we were having some messaging and branding conversations, and she said, I hate the term social impact, because what does that mean? What do those 2 words mean as a branding and a design person that doesn't, she cares about social causes. She volunteers every week, but she still was when you say social impact, what does, I don't know what you're talking about. And so that's been a really interesting, ongoing conversation for us. Not that we've never thought about our impact before, but in terms of reaching folks who don't live, breathe, eat social impact every day of their lives. And so it's interesting. I think for us, I like to take a big tent approach. We never consider ourselves to be topic experts, but experts at convening the right people at the right time to make things happen. And so for us, if you are someone who is trying to make the world or the individual lives of humans better, you're welcome at a GiveBackHack event. And I say that because we also get into the weeds on the definition of social entrepreneurship or social impact or et cetera sometimes. And I also take what I call a big tent approach there, where it's not that I don't think that defining those things is ever helpful, but for us, like if you're aligned with trying to make the general human condition better, then you're our people and we want you there. But when it comes to like our impact as an organization, I think we're constantly evolving. There's a few things that have been true for us since the beginning, which is what does the success of our teams look like, of the startups that come out of GiveBackHack weekends. But something that honestly we should chat about is we know that there's layers of impact under that, which come through in stories but don't quite come through in data yet, which are things like folks who attended our second ever GiveBackHack event, not necessarily starting a company, but now working at the City of Columbus and taking the strategies that we taught into their work to get projects off the ground more quickly. And we think about those people that like literally write us on LinkedIn or call us and say like, hey, I just got out of this meeting. Like I took these things straight out of there and like, look at the success of this program. This was so impactful, thank you. And we think like, how do we start to get our hands around that better? I think is something that we're actively working on because those stories are really cool and really inspiring, but we're not quite sure how we count them yet, so. And how we share them. Yeah, sharing stories it's so heartwarming. That's why I'm excited to do things like this, but also like really hard to capture and store and use that as fuel for us moving forward, yeah.
Sheri, I know like I've talked a little bit about some of your customers. Now that you have like from your what is impact and your whys, how can you like connect some like examples from some of your current customers and what you're seeing come out of using your
Sure. Yeah, I think we have a 3-year, one of our most early adopters it's a foundation actually locally here in Columbus, but they're national. It's called the Seymour Institute. It's a family foundation. Their whole mission is aligned with childhood education stability. But it's a different premise, right? It's not about in-school stability. It's this theory that kids who are living in poverty, they often move a lot because of housing instability. So their family may have to move because they get evicted or they can't afford their rent anymore. And that disruptive school move, actually research shows that it's very detrimental to children's educational outcomes. And so they're taking a completely different approach to children's educational stability. Their theory is the schools know how to educate the children, but it's the fact that these kids are moving a lot that is causing this disruption. So let's invest in programs with children, school-age children, that are designed to keep families in their own homes because of that theory. So anyway, that's their mission. They use SureImpact across their entire network of 150 nonprofits across the US. And so how the model works is the funder has the license. All of those 150 nonprofits get a free sponsored version of our product. So they're using the product to track and measure who they're serving, the outcomes that these families are having. So now this foundation has 3 years worth of data. The data is in real time. They get actually real-time updates every 4 hours on their dashboards. So the foundation can look and see when, for example, it's been a fascinating journey over the last 3 years because there's been a lot of rental assistance pumped in through the markets, but it's ebbed and flowed. And so they see trends of like, oh, look, the rental assistance is starting to dry up in these communities. We're starting to see housing instability spike. And they're like, this is real time. This isn't like waiting 2 years for the census data to come out and then try to make sense of what happened 2 years ago. No, it's like what's happening on the ground now. They're also learning what's working, what's not working, so they can educate their network of best practices. So it's something that is really exciting for me to see. And then we were able to leverage this particular model and show and demonstrate its impact. So now the city of Columbus has just purchased a license for SureImpact, and there's 112 nonprofits in Columbus that have received funding called the Elevate funding. And they will all be using SureImpact to track 9 of the mayor's initiatives related to infant vitality, housing stability, workforce development. I'm not going to name all 9, I know. Let's see, built environments. There's probably a reentry, violence reduction. So some of the most important things in Columbus that are happening in our communities that the mayor's agenda is aligned with. And so the learnings that we'll get here just in Columbus in terms of what is the nonprofit ecosystem doing, what's working to address these problems. It's to me, this we've been launching that this summer, and it is a, like, I don't know, what is that term? Like a mountaintop moment for me, just to be able to really drive this true, it's an ecosystem change, like to be data-driven and have these insights. It's really exciting, and to think Columbus, because Columbus is the test case for all things, right? And so if we could take this and innovate the way government works across the country, I will have successfully succeeded in my life goal. So it's exciting. Yeah.
Can you talk about the resources that the company offers? Can you explain that?
Yeah, to entrepreneurs
Yes.
specifically. Yeah, so it always depends, of course, but I'll get a little bit more specific. So we've got process, quote, resources, and funding are the things that we provide to teams. And resources is the fun one because that one is expanding and we're looking at it a little bit differently. So traditionally, we try to pull in support from service providers across the community in terms of just pro bono support to get entrepreneurs off the ground. That's not very interesting or exciting. Those are things like law consulting packages, accounting consulting packages, pitch coaching, that sort of thing, that are all very important. I called them boring because it's not necessarily innovative, but it is critical because a lot of our folks, we see that for us, we believe and we see over and over again that the entrepreneurs that are most successful at tackling social issues are ones that have direct experience with those social issues themselves, whether that be maternal mortality or homelessness or anything in between. And we have a lot of folks who have never started a business before come through GiveBackHack. And so things like that, structure of any type that we can provide to folks are critically important to keeping them moving after the weekend. Because I think a really important distinction is that we do not consider ourselves a hackathon because we are hell-bent on next steps after GiveBackHack weekend. So some of those resources, like pro bono consulting hours, help them bridge the gap into whatever their next step might be, like Rev1 Customer Learning Labs or C-Change Social Enterprise Accelerator or National Accelerators, those sorts of things. But what we're looking at right now is that what I've talked about today is what I call our pre-idea and idea stage work. And we're starting to look down the pipeline a little bit as well. We also see this gap for folks who have been working on a social innovation tech product of some sort for a while, have started to do the work, have vetted, validated, feel like they're close to product market fit, if not have found it, but have this gap to jumping to like a functional MVP or to a pre-seed round or whatever their next step might be. And so we're trying to figure out what resources look like here. So some folks in the room might have thoughts and partnerships available to chat about that, and I would love to. But right now, what we're doing is what I like to call sweat equity without the equity. We are just hustling for our entrepreneurs to figure out alongside them what the things they need when they get to this spot are. And sometimes that's connections to investors. Sometimes that's trying to find founders from across the country who have done the thing that they are doing to give right-timed, right-sized mentorship, which has been a struggle for our teams in the past. Yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Great. Yeah.
Can you guys talk about what you have seen or experienced as far as like startups or tech companies that are in the social change, social enterprise environment versus those that are not, that are in the for-profit or large sort of enterprise corporation side?
Yeah. Ooh, there's a lot here. This is one of my favorite topics lately. So I think In the social enterprise ecosystem, we strongly believe that social innovation deserves and necessitates the same exact resources that traditional for-profit innovation does. And I think we have a little bit, identity crisis is a heavy way to put it, but I think we're having a little bit of an identity crisis where we like to put them in these two boxes, like I just even said, but really it's just a big pool and community of support because organizations, especially like Sheri's, like you are no different than any other for-profit startup, but a lot of folks and entrepreneurs that we see come in, especially early stage to GiveBackHack, they have their heart first and not their entrepreneur brain first, and that's okay, and we love those folks. But a lot of my job, especially early on, is coaching people that our practices necessitate that you have to want to make money to make the impact you want to make. You have to be okay with that. That doesn't mean that you want to profit or become a millionaire, XYZ, but don't we all? A little bit, right? But you have to be driven by making your business successful if you want to make the impact that you want to make. And so I'll be honest, that struggle is something that I don't see as much as folks that even might consider themselves a social enterprise but come in through the for-profit startup side. I think of folks like Naveen at Dollar and Sheri at SureImpact and folks that are doing impact work in the startup space, but they have gone the startup route. And then we've got these folks that we're trying to coach and support into that space. And we're trying to figure out what that looks like. I mean, I'll be honest, these folks are really easily coachable. It's not that that's like a lost cause by any means, but it's always trying to find the right balance of team dynamics and support and resources along the way to expose them and get them in those environments. Because I also love our nonprofit community a lot and deeply, and I've worked in nonprofits, but a lot of these folks come from there and get stuck in that mindset rather than what does a scale mindset look like for me. And so sometimes that's just a really good mentor sitting down to like blow their mind open to what this could look like. And I mean, really often that is what it is. But those are, I think, in terms of like the psychology and the mindset and the dynamics, that's what I see how it looks like. I don't know if that feels similar to you or not.
Yeah, I would agree with everything you said. And I think as a tech company that's serving, like right now, we only serve the government and nonprofit space. We don't have a single contract with I think I'm saying, I don't want to like speak out of turn, but I'm like running through the list. No, we do not have a single contract with a for-profit entity. So all of our revenue is coming from government and nonprofits. And I will tell you, when that is the market you serve, to raise money, it is, I mean, it's not impossible because I did it, but it feels nearly impossible. Because if you think about it, most investors did not get rich because they were in the nonprofit space, right? And we watch it on Shark Tank all the time, where the sharks, I'm just using that because that's like a public domain show that we all know about, right? The sharks will say, I'm out, because they don't understand the market in which you're presenting them. So here I am presenting an opportunity in a market they don't understand. So immediately, the minute I said nonprofit, they're out. I'm done. They don't have any money. Well, they have plenty of money. It's a tax status. It's not a, there's different challenges, but there's money in that sector, so there's an opportunity here. And so for me, what really helped me kind of bend the curve is that there are very profitable nonprofit tech companies. I was fortunate enough to get involved with Jay Love, who he has founded and sold 4 nonprofit tech companies over his career, and he became an investor in SureImpact. He's a board member. He's an advisor. And when he joined our team, that's when the world totally shifted for me, because then he had the kind of the like gravitas or the proof point that this is possible. You can make a lot of money in this. And he is also a social entrepreneur in a lot of ways, because he has now brought together, I think, 9 of us CEOs across the country that are running early stage tech companies. And we're now in a CEO group together. So what I used to feel like I was just this crazy unicorn doing something that nobody thought could be, like, now at least I know about 9 or 10 other crazy unicorns that are doing this. And so that's been a lot of fun to normalize my experience a little bit more. But yeah, it's a very, I think there needs to be more education if these companies need the capital, which most do, like to solve these problems, it requires a lot of capital. And the people, at least you probably see this too, the founders who want to create these companies are often underrepresented because they are experiencing these problems firsthand. And therefore that means they probably are they're people with living experiences. If they say, okay, go do a friends and family round, they're like, my friends and family are all living in poverty too. Like, how is that possible, right? And so there's some very structural barriers that I think the investment community just kind of has to look at their own maybe intrinsic biases that they don't realize how the game is played, that is holding a lot of in my opinion, great innovation back. And so I do want to give a shout out to Rev One because they were our first investor, and they were willing to kind of go into this crazy nonprofit ecosystem space where traditionally they had not invested in before.
I definitely agree with all of that, 100%.
I'm curious about, since you do work with so much data, I'm wondering how AI has had an impact on the effort that you've put forth.
Well, I'm excited about AI, and I've been excited about AI for 5 years because when I started the company, I knew that if we could get to scale, we could leverage AI to help the nonprofits be even smarter with the data. But you can't use AI unless you have the data, right? So it's that, and our sector, that's not their expertise, right? They hear the word AI, they know AI is important, but they're like, well, call me when you have AI in the product. I'm like, okay, but you don't understand the way AI works. There has to be a data source for AI to use to make you smarter. So let's chicken and the egg here. So I don't know that AI is. It is in our future, but we have to get more to scale before we can start to utilize AI in an effective way.
I think for us, we are in the early journey, like I think a lot of folks are, figuring out the implications of what this whole chapter means for us in terms of what I'm calling the alphabet soup of AI, ML, LLM, et cetera. There's a lot happening, but right now my personal mission is I'm very dedicated to making sure that our entrepreneurs do not get left behind. I am not an engineer, and so in terms of building products that are LLM-based, that's not my expertise, but I do have a lot of solopreneur teams that could be 30% more efficient if they felt confident with the tools that exist in our open source right now. And so we've just started we experiment with everything, we follow design thinking, we prototype, everything's a prototype for us. And so we start to prototype like roundtables with entrepreneurs where we just get folks together and say, like, what are you using? Tell me your workflow, let's share, let's just take an hour and talk about it. And we'll be hosting an event next month, August 19th, with Columbus Code and Coffee at Cohatch Gateway. We'll be hosting 2 roundtables there. One of them will be AI for entrepreneurs, so kind of like what I just talked about, bringing in folks currently working on projects to share best practices of how AI is fitting into the workflow. And then another table, which I call kind of our hack table, which will be for probably more the traditional folks that come to Columbus Code and Coffee, which are developers all across their career that are more eager to figure out like new solutions, how we can actually build tools that solve social issues. So they'll just be a short event of tables of conversation, but doing things like that, trying to get the conversation going. So again, we don't feel like folks are being left behind is kind of where I'm at right now. Yeah.
Just one last thing. So how can I or we help? You know, I'm a problem solver, I'm a people connector, and when I can do that to make an impact, that's kind of where, that's my jam. And so I'm thinking about, so I'm on a nonprofit board, I'm already thinking about connecting our CEO with you if you're open to it. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people who would benefit from GiveBackHack. How do we help, amplify the mission and the impact that you both have talked about today?
Thanks for asking. That's my favorite question, to ask people and to be asked. Three things. One, if you know someone that is eager and hungry to work on big problems, send them our way. Especially if you know someone, and I have to say this in rooms because it's the only way that we find people. If you have someone that's been thinking about and sitting on this idea for a long time, they don't know where to start, that is the perfect space to come to GiveBackHack. So in terms of individuals, that's super helpful. Number two, I'm looking to talk to more folks doing interesting things in the K through 12 space. I'm going to keep it open like that. We have entrepreneurship curriculum, we run high school programs, etc. But I'm more just trying to get a lay of the land of where folks are approaching different things, what people are doing, how they're thinking about it, just early stage conversations. And then I had one last thing that I don't remember. Oh, go ahead. I'll see if I can come back to it.
Yeah, I think one of the, obviously, any referrals to nonprofit leaders, absolutely. That's where we are in the market. We definitely have product market fit. We're a mature company now in terms of the offering and the solution that we provide. So bring us your leads. That's always helpful. But another thing is if you are on a board or work with any nonprofits, asking different questions, right? Really ask them, how are you effective at meeting your mission? And then when they tell you, say, what data are you using to prove it? It's amazing that our research shows that only about 25%, and that's actually probably a little high because of the sample bias, of nonprofits actually can prove they're meeting their mission. And we need people, though, to be asking them that question and asking them how they prove it and stop just giving good money after bad. Because I have worked in this space for 25 years, and I have evaluated programs that are actually making people and children worse. It's not because they want to make people and children worse. It's just they're not, like, you would never run a business and not look at your financials. It just would be the craziest thing ever. So why do we have a whole sector, sorry, now I'm on my soapbox, but why do we have a whole sector where it's okay that they can take money from all of us and not have to demonstrate the return of their social impact, not their financial impact, because that's not what they're in the business for. They're in the business to change lives and change circumstances, and not to have indicators of that and be able to communicate that back. Fundamentally, I don't understand it. And so change the questions you're asking. Because when you change those questions, then a problem is introduced that is a real problem, and SureImpact is the solution.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Thank you.